Nothing will crush a real estate investor's spirit like landlord stress. The difference between being successful and miserable in managing properties is education. Welcome to Landlord University, where landlords learn. Landlord University is recorded from inside the RentPrep office, where Stephen White and Jeff Pearson share the lessons learned from working with some of the most successful landlords.
Welcome to Landlord University Night School. I'm Jeff Pearson. I'm here with my co-host, Stephen White. Hello, Stephen. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, pretty good, Jeff. Another exciting episode of Landlord University here in Night School, talking about strange signs of drug use. And this is a funny topic for me because it's a call that we get pretty frequently. And I think a lot of landlords are concerned that some of the things that are happening inside of their rental units may be drug related. And I think for the most part, a lot of landlords are sort of out of touch with a lot of the drug habits, which isn't a bad thing, but they just don't know what these things mean. And so some of these signs that they see raise a lot of red flags and a lot of questions. And so this one landlord had called a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke to her, and she had a very specific list of things that she had written down during an annual inspection. So kudos for her for doing the annual inspection and for catching these things
Exactly.
and for noticing them. And that's the whole, one of the greatest points of being able to do the annual inspection is to get into the unit, look around, see if there's anything out of place or out of the ordinary. And in this case, she was being, very observant and vigilant and well aware of what's happening. And she just wanted some clarity on some of the things that she found. So her concern was that the person was manufacturing meth in the house. I think that's such a hot topic right now in the news, and you hear stories all the time about it. And depending on where you live in the country, I think in some places are definitely more hotspots for this type of activity than others. But she had some serious concerns that somebody was manufacturing crystal meth in her rental unit. And after she explained some of the things that she had written down, I pretty confidently ruled out meth. So
Okay.
I'll go over with you what she had found, and you give me your opinion on it.
Sure.
So the first thing that she thought was really bizarre was that she found dryer tissues and cotton stuffed in the bathroom vents. And she said that when she had gone in there, she turned the lights on and the vents on, and she immediately heard a difference when she turned the fan on, and she looked up and she had noticed that there was things stuffed in the fan, or on the opposite side of the fan. So in other words, the fan was the exhaust fan was blowing out of the bathroom as it should, but instead of blowing directly outside and out through a vent, it was blowing through these cotton, whatever was the cotton was soaked with, in dryer tissues. The other thing that she had noticed was that all of the aerators were missing on the faucets. And the aerators are the little screens that you find on the bottom of the faucets.
Mm-hmm.
So those were two really noticeable things that she thought was very bizarre. And she said that their behavior was just kind of bizarre as she was doing the walkthrough. And when she questioned them on it, they had very suspicious reasoning for why the things were the way that they were. So her immediate reaction was, are they making meth in the house? My opinion was, I didn't think that they were making meth. I thought it's as simple as they were probably smoking pot in the house.
Right.
I think the aerators are used for screens usually in some sort of a smoking device, and having the bathroom vents stuffed with dryer sheets and cotton, things like that, helps to, distinguish some of the smell, the odor that might be coming from, smoking it. So you can't smell it outside. So they're probably closing the bathroom door, doing what they're doing in there, and turning the vents on so that it all blows outside, but it's, the air, the smoke is kind of being purified through the dryer sheets and things like that.
That seems to make sense. Yeah.
And that was, I said, listen, I don't want to, I'm not basing this on anything other than common sense. So I don't think, but, I also was basing it on some of the traditional signs of people who manufacture meth, which there are a lot of well documented red flags and warning signs of what to look for. So I'll go over some of that as well. And after I explained to her some of those warning signs, she agreed that none of those were evident in the apartment, and so she kind of ruled out meth as well. And I think at that point it becomes an issue of how you want to deal with the situation, and
Yes.
I think that certain drug situations are certainly worse than others. If you're manufacturing meth in the home, you got to worry about a whole host of things, destroying the place, the chemicals seeping into the walls, explosions. You're dealing with a lot of, unstable chemicals and things like that versus somebody who's probably, smoking pot in the bathroom on the
That's right.
weekends or whatever. But some of the signs that we see for meth are going to be pretty obvious. We see people who in their garbage they have a lot of empty bottles and boxes, and especially if you see empty bottles or boxes specifically of isopropyl alcohol, propane canisters, acetone, paint thinner, sulfuric or muriatic acid, um, typically chemicals.
Yeah.
These type of chemicals that normally, and any of those chemicals that I just mentioned, other than maybe paint thinner, I don't think most people would ever have. And even paint thinner, I don't think a lot of, because they're probably not painting the place.
Hmm.
Um, so these are usually pretty big red flags and warning signs that somebody's making something and using these ingredients that they normally you would never need or come by.
Exactly.
Some of the other things to keep an eye out for, as far as suspicious drug activity, are going to be cash only renters. I know that there's a lot of renters who do deal in cash, and they're probably not drug dealers or people in those situations, but definitely something to just sort of keep an eye on if they insist on dealing with cash only, or if they don't have any bank accounts, or they just don't want to pay you through any of the traditional means that you would normally pay a rent. um, Something to just sort of keep an extra eye open for. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of little hints that sort of lead up to a larger find. So in that case, I think that's one of them there.
Yes.
A lot of visitors coming in and out of the place. So if you get, neighbors that complain and say, there's just a high traffic of short visits, people coming in and out, they show up for 5-10 minutes and then they leave. And it seems to be an all day event where they're just in and out. I think that's a lot of time indicative of somebody who's selling drugs out of their apartment. And short visits, short tenancies as well. I think that people um, who have managed to dodge the law, a lot of times do it because they are on the move pretty
Hmm.
frequently. And I think that's another warning sign as well. If you're insisting on a year lease and somebody wants to pay you cash for 6 months and then leave, you have to question what's the motive behind that, or why would they want to do that. And if they're not from out of the area and they're just moving around town and in the same neighborhood or one neighborhood over and just living at a place for 6 months at a time, paying cash and leaving again, that's probably a pretty good sign that there's maybe some illegal activity going on there.
Yes. And that's one of the things in your screening process. You want to pay attention to how long people have stayed in their previous residence.
Absolutely. And another thing that I would absolutely recommend not looking over is during the annual inspection. And we've talked so many times how important it is, and this is clearly a really good example of why it's so important. Check places that you maybe normally wouldn't check. So closets, attics, low traffic areas. And what you're looking for there is grow sites, places where, somebody in a closet might, you know, uh, put, some sort of plastic sheeting or something in the closet, and they've got grow lights in there and everything else. And, I've just from what I've seen on the news and everything, sometimes people can create some pretty elaborate uh, setups inside of
Yes.
their units, and so you want to check everything. Don't skip past a locked door and have them say, "Oh, we keep that locked because it's messy," or whatever the reasoning might be that they say that they keep it locked. If you're doing the inspection, inspect every crevice of that unit.
Right. And as you mentioned, looking at the garbage, open the garbage cans outside and see what's inside them. I mean, it seems a little bit strange, but if you have any concerns, that somebody might be manufacturing drugs, that's going to be one of the places you'll find things.
Mhm.
But in addition to looking for grow sites in the attics and the closets and things like that, the other thing that you're looking for is maybe they took all of the stuff that they're using
Mhm.
and put it away in advance of your visit.
Yeah. And a great way to really sort of keep the tension down also in these situations is be prepared during the inspections with a listing of every room in the property. You know that property, it's yours, so you should know every nook and cranny of the place. And so have your inspection sheet ready and prepared with, every room that you need to go into.
That's a good point.
So when they say, that room's locked or we don't go in there, well, it's on my list and I need to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So again, another great example of running your rentals like a business. Have a system in place and be prepared and be very observant. When you're going through, you're looking for these signs. I applaud the landlord who found the cotton and dryer sheets stuffed in the vents and missing aerators. I mean, it's pretty impressive to be able to catch that through
and no question about it.
Yeah, through a walkthrough. But she knew something was kind of, something was up and something didn't seem right. And so, she started to notice those types of things. And so I think a lot of times, the tenants tend to try and stay a step ahead. So as a landlord, we need to also keep that in mind and stay a step ahead of them as well.
Exactly. One of the things, if you find signs of drug use or drug manufacturing or anything like that, and you want to pursue it, and drug use, if people are using marijuana, especially in this day and age, there are more and more states that have legal marijuana. So you may or may not want to evict someone because of marijuana use. And in fact, in many cases these days, you might not be able to. So that's your call. I mean, obviously, if somebody's manufacturing drugs or selling drugs from your property, the first thing you need to do is contact an attorney who specializes in tenant law.
Yeah.
You don't want to try to handle it yourself. I don't think I would even go to the police first. I would go to an attorney and let them guide you through the process. This is not going to be something that you want to take on yourself. You don't want to put yourself at risk. And if somebody's manufacturing drugs in your property, you're in a tough situation. You want to get that taken care of right away.
Right. And I did have a situation where there was a landlord who suspected drug activity, and I don't think that they were suspecting any manufacturing or anything. And to be honest with you, it's been long enough now that I don't even remember the specifics of what they thought that they were doing in there, but they had gone to the police first. And they made it almost to sound like there was something way bigger than what was probably happening in the unit. So so the police came in basically, ready for a major bust or something, and had shown up and came out empty-handed, and there was nothing wrong. And then the tenants brought suit against the landlord for harassment.
Right.
So a good example of, maybe, I know the first reaction might be to go to the police, but I think that it's really good advice that you gave by, contact an attorney, specifically who has experience with tenant law, and they will help you come up with a system of what to do and the steps that you might need to take.
Yeah. And, if you are noticing that kind of stuff, you want to make notes while you're there, but you don't want to make too many notes. If this person is walking with you and looking over your shoulder, you don't want to make it too obvious. Again, for your own safety, get in your car, drive to a parking lot in a safe environment, and sit down and write down everything you saw. And you're just trying to write down the facts of what you saw. You're not making assumptions. You're saying, I saw cotton sheets in the vent fans.
Mm-hmm.
I saw boxes of acetone and alcohol and acid. Whatever it was you saw that makes you question it, write it down. I saw this here. And where did you see it? What did you see? That way you have just the facts, as they used to say on the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
You can take those facts to the attorney, and the attorney can interpret those and help guide you.
Right.
And again, that way you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're embellishing or making it sound worse than it is. Even if you were to go to the police and you say, this is what I saw, there's nothing wrong with that. Those are facts. That's what you saw. That's what you presented to the police. And the police made the assumption based on your facts that this could be whatever it is. But again, I would start with an attorney, because the attorney is going to understand this stuff much better than we would understand it, and they'll be able to guide us through the process.
Right, exactly.
Great. This is good information, Stephen. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to talking with you tomorrow evening.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for listening to Landlord University, and remember to visit rentprep.com/landlordu to see show notes and access free resources like forms and guides. And be sure to check out Jeff Pearson hosting his own hit podcast at thementorimpact.com.